Honourable Member for St. James Central.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, may I proceed, sir?
You may proceed, Honourable Member. The chair has called you. You may proceed.
I'm obliged.
Disregard the asides.
I'm not going to let the asides confuse me, sir. Mr. Chairman, thank you. Minister, I know that it is only maybe about as much as a month has passed since the election, but there was joyous news in the north of the island to discover that there was going to be a policy intervention that will enable young people in the north to have access to facilities of a Olympic-sized nature in terms of swimming pool. We know that the whole country has had to use the aquatic center facility. And as a parent myself, I have had to endure what others have had to, where you have children, maybe as many as 7 or 8 in one lane as they use the 25-meter stretch so as to get training. So obviously this is something about which we are overjoyed in the north. What I want to find out from you is whether your team has any idea as to, or can share with the House any of the plans in terms of location precisely and the likelihood of start time.
Thank you for your question, Honourable Member. It is interesting that you would ask this question about swimming when only yesterday the Ministry of Health had reasons to close the aquatic center. And today I had to speak to the PS at the Ministry of Education seeking permission to use the facility at the old convent school for the purpose of having the national team that is participating in Carifta be able to practice. So having 2 new Olympic-sized swimming pools on island is something that is absolutely necessary. I know clubs may be disadvantaged a little bit over the next 3 weeks because the facilities will be used specifically for the national team to continue their preparation for Carifta at the Easter break. Trent was identified as the location in the north for that particular swimming pool. We now have to go and do the necessary site visits. The one in the east is at Bushy Park, adjacent the 400 track, but the one in St. James, we're now going to do the site visits to make sure that everything is okay in terms of putting it at that location. But it is really now quite critical that we have the additional pools in place for redundancy, just because of this situation that crop up now where the Ministry of Health indicated that the pool at the aquatic center was not fit for purpose at this time and asked that it be closed with immediate effect.
My follow-up question, thank you very much, Minister, and my follow-up question to you is if you can give us an idea as to how much that sport has, I use the word mushroomed, but how much it has grown in recent times. My sense of it from a distance is that certainly there's a transformation. When I was at school, there was no such thing as competitive swimming at an inter-school level. And I sense that the whole level of participation has grown tremendously. But are you in a position as minister to be able to give us any data as to the extent of participation across the island at both public and primary level?
Thank you, Minister. What I would say to you is that right now we have approximately 10 clubs, 10 swim clubs on island functioning. In my estimation, people will go to their particular clubs because of a preference. Ideally, I would like to see maybe the numbers cut where there's a little more concentration in terms of the training. With 2 pools coming on stream, maybe it will take some pressure, not maybe, it will take some pressure off of the aquatic center at Wilde. But you're correct, swimming is one of those sports that is mushrooming. And I believe it will continue to do so because, as mentioned by you, it is now something that is competitive within the school setting. So what we need to do now is to be able to manage what is happening within the pool. And again, it reads down to having the requisite amount of coaches to be able to handle those 10 clubs and to be able to continue to be on the cutting edge of what is happening as it relates to swimming. I'm told that swimming is something that you don't normally take a break to say, well, I'm taking a 4 weeks break from track or whatever. It is something that will continue. I will ask the director to indicate, because I know we had 1 or 2 coaches from Cuba, and the plans were in place to increase the number of coaches that we were sourcing from Cuba. So I will ask the director to speak to that in relation to what is being proposed for swimming.
Thank you, Minister Neil Merle, Director, National Sports Council, and thank you for the question, member from St. James Central. Indeed, swimming has mushroomed over the years, I would say over the last 15 years or so, to the extent that we have been asked to do, and we have been doing a Learn to Swim program every summer, where we attract over 1,000 young people from within the Barbadian, 1,000 persons from within the Barbadian community. We've even gone to the extent where we've had a mature elderly swimming program, which happens twice a year and for 10 weeks, and it is oversubscribed. So swimming is certainly on the uptick in Barbados, and therefore additional swimming facilities are needed to be able to facilitate the growth in swimming over the years. Thank you.
And the last follow-up really is a simple one. Let's just trying to understand the vision as you go forward, because the pattern of the evolution of the sport has often been that where you have the competitive swimming and you have the appropriate facilities, very often then annexed to that comes the desire to do the diving. And of course, nowadays there are derivatives of the aquatic sports, so that there are a number of other things that people are doing in the swimming pool as well. In fact, Barbados at one point was a place where we competed in water polo many years ago. And my question is, are you all seeing a vision for that type of evolution, and whether the new investment at Trent's, for example, or the other one, I think, where's the other one in the east of the island, are they going to be able to carry that kind of facility, diving, for example?
Definitely, yes. I know that there's a constituent of mine who is, I think, deputy or vice president of the Polo Association, and he's doing a lot in terms of trying to resuscitate polo on island. So I believe that that is something that we will see coming on stream. In addition to that, at some point in time, I had discussions about improving what is at the aquatic center to include now a diving pool. So if provisions are put in place, we may see the diving pool as well at the 2 locations that will also now allow people to be involved in the platform diving, which is another area that you mentioned that is coming out of the swimming. So yes, definitely we need to get those particular programs, because oftentimes Carifta is like, what, 18 on the 19. When they move past that, a lot of swimmers tend to just fade. So if we can channel them into a different water sport, then I think it will all go well for us going forward. So yes, it is something that is being considered going forward. One of the things, Senior Minister, that I would like to say as well is that I think, you know, we need to have some kind of national program that will allow parents to see sports as not just an add-on, but to realize that, you know, there's a lot of value for their children to be involved in whatever sporting disciplines. I mean, the more the merrier. And I'm talking about starting from young, because if they're able to explore different disciplines, then they may find that particular one that they can excel in. But we tend not to allow our children from a young age to be involved in the process. And I would have mentioned in Cuba, where primary school children are training with the hurdles. So maybe it's a cultural thing, but I think we need to move away from that and to get our youngsters involved in swimming and other activities from a very, very young age.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Michael South.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for your kindness. I appreciate you. Honourable Member, thank you for your presentation thus far and the estimates, and for the work you would have done in sports, community development, and youth. As Minister, I think you have done a phenomenal job. I wouldn't use the questions that I have to talk about the Bayland, although I would want to thank you publicly for the lights that we were able to get on the field, even though I would do it a couple more because it's still a little dark in some areas. And also, I could also do with a regrading at that particular passer, because, it's not always kind to the footballers. But I would not talk about that. That's not my question. If you choose to respond, I would be happy. My question, however, Chair, is in relation to road tennis. And I would have noted in Barbados, I actually put on a road tennis tournament, I think of some merit and distinction. But I would have noted in Barbados that the truth is road tennis is the one thing nobody gave to us. We created it. And I am keen to know to what extent are we prepared to scale it up so that it moves beyond recreation, it moves beyond a community-based activity. I noted in the strategic goals for the ministry, it says to promote the advancement of road tennis internationally. So I really want to know what the plans are for road tennis. And to what extent are we going to be able to make road? We've been talking about it so long, about the capacity to make road tennis a big, large national thing and then a bigger international event. And so I'm keen to hear the plans for road tennis going forward. Chair, question 1.
Thank you, Senior Minister. Let me start where you would have started. We are aware that a number of the playing fields, we have some issues in relation to positioning the lights. And where there are some dark spots, we can go back and retrofit and maybe add. Maybe in some cases, it's just a need to adjust the lights on the playing field to get the maximum impact. In terms of the regrading of the field, I'm sure that Mr. Matthias would be able to look at that and see how best that we can facilitate that for you. Road tennis is something that is growing. Maybe we don't toot our horn enough in relation to what we're doing with the road tennis. We have started the process of putting together, in a similar way to what I mentioned earlier about the community coaches, we have put together a grouping of coaches specifically to be able to deal with road tennis off island. Because we have had a lot of hits from Africa and other areas in relation to having coaches come to move the process forward. We are probably, I would say, a month away from doing some other things with the road tennis in relation to the International Road Tennis Federation. We need to start it here. The truth is that we need about, I think, 50 or so countries to be involved in the process. But Dale Clark is at the ministry with specific responsibility for moving the process forward. And I'm going to ask him now to address you in total in terms of what we're looking at as far as the road tennis is concerned, also the monetizing of it as well. Mr. Clark.
Good afternoon. I'm Dale Clark, the road tennis czar. And it's a pleasure to be here so that I could share the plans that we have for road tennis, the developmental plans. We have approached it in 3 areas where we have the local development, regional development, and international development. One of the integral parts for this program to go forward is the certification of coaches. So I've had some recent meetings with Dr. Rudy Allen at the University of the West Indies. So we are in conversations where we could put together that program where we can certify our coaches. Because this lends to also creating employment, because these coaches, the plans to deploy them around the world, export the coaches and our officials, similar to what Cuba does with their coaches and officials. So that's one of the things that we are looking towards the development. Locally, we are going to be implementing a grassroots program where they're going to be in each constituency. And that program will target 20 children. It's going to be 2 cohorts. So it's going to be, they're going to run for 3 months each, annually, and that will give us a pool of 1,200 children annually coming into sports. Because when traveling, my concern is that we, even though we have started the sport, we might not be relevant in the years to come because of the, how to put it, the eagerness that is seen when we travel abroad, how many people want to play the sport and how they, just want to stay on the court to participate. So that is one of the programs that is going to be fundamental. There's also going to be addressing the lack of females playing, so we're going to design programs specifically to get the female participation, and that's going to be through a number of female initiatives. Then for the international aspect, I have developed and designed a 2-year grassroots program that we'll be introducing to the countries that we go to. So the government's role now would be to have dialogue with those countries where in the MOUs that we signed that it puts provisions for us to export our coaches to the relevant countries. Thank you.
So my follow-up on this question is, look, we've been in the estimates now for 2 weeks. And my view has been, I've been consistent on it, is that the estimates of a ministry tells you the vision and the policy direction of that ministry. You put your money where your mouth is for the most part. I can't tell from the estimates how much money is going to what road tennis. I imagine some is, but it's not broken down that way per sport, which is understandable. But I feel we have to see road tennis as a really big business, with the same kind of investment strategy that you would have for any other business. And I mean like a serious business development strategy. I don't know if the ministry has one. I don't know if the czar for road tennis had created one, but we need to have one, and it needs to be known to Barbadians. Because the capacity for road tennis, first of all, at the local level, when I was minister responsible for crime prevention, I felt road tennis was perhaps the easiest win in a crime prevention strategy. Simply because you don't have to take people far out and buy expensive rackets, and you play road tennis where you live. I felt it was critical to being able to help us deal with some of our crime issues. But beyond that, just a national strategy to the extent that we invest in cricket, the way we invest in football, with the same kind of money is being put behind it, a written, documented national development strategy for road tennis that speaks to the local level as well as the international level. And I'm just wondering if that is the direction, Minister, that the ministry is going to go, where we can see projections. And I'm not talking about projections in hundreds of dollars, I'm talking about thousands and millions of dollars. And that kind of level of focus. So my question, my follow-up question then is in relation to that development strategy, Chair.
Thank you again for the question. We have 1.9 allocated to the development of road tennis at this time. And yes, I've had conversations with Mr. Clark in relation to a number of things that I think we need to put in place. Standardizing the weight of the rackets for youngsters as opposed to them playing with the same racket as the adults. There's actually a road tennis academy that is alive and well at Blenheim. We are the first sport on island to use the line technology. As you may be aware, when the finals are being played in the gymnasium. So what we're trying to do is to make road tennis travel. As you mentioned, being able to make this a big business. I spoke to the principal of SJPA at one point in time to see if we can have the road tennis balls printed with the machine that they possess at SJPA. He said they had to retrofit it. We would have to go back to see if that is the case so that we have balls that are manufactured here. The rackets are something that I think we can export. There's a big interest in Africa in terms of us getting there to promote it. I know the sport would have taken off at a major level in Canada as well. So for what you're saying, the question that you're asking, yes, we are definitely looking to move road tennis to a level where maybe in a year or two, with the influx of different countries being involved, that we can get observer status as far as the Olympics is concerned, because it must go through that process before it is fully recognized. But it is our indigenous sport, and we are planning to do every single thing that is necessary to move it to that level. I'm not sure if I would have missed anything and Mr. Clark want to add to that, but we are looking to do the Caribbean first. One of the things that I'm asking for is, in addition to our annual finals, that we have an international flavor attached, where it is a case now where like the sports tourism can kick in. We can organize to have competitions in other countries, and as part of the first prize that they've flown to Barbados to participate in that finals on the floor of the gymnasium.
My final follow-up, Chair. The question for me, I know that road tennis is in schools, but to the extent that when I went to school, I went to St. Michael's School, and the pool that you mentioned, every student who goes to St. Michael's School in first form, you have to take swimming. You have to go to swimming. And we used to walk over every day to the convent. And every Thursdays, we'd walk over. The Honourable Member for St. Thomas, also St. Michael's School, but we'd all walk across. We had to take swimming. And I'm wondering to what extent we have to be serious about this indigenous sport. I know some schools play tennis. I don't know if all do. But I think it has to be part of our educational curricula like any other thing. If we really want to pass on the value of road tennis, not only for sport, I'm talking about a serious philosophical underpinning of who we are as Barbadians. I had to take swimming in first form, whether I wanted to take swimming or not. A person should be playing road tennis in schools, whether they want to or not. Every Barbadian should know how to play, or at least have had the opportunity to play. So I'm just, again, asking about the relationship with the Ministry of Education, and to what extent has it become large enough, Minister, I know you're visionary, but large enough in your mind to see road tennis as that thing where every Barbadian child must come into contact with it at school, like they do with English and math, and as I had to with swimming at St. Michael's School.
Thank you, Minister. I will part answer you, and then Mr. Clark will come in. But we have had so many requests from schools to have a court placed at their location. And I think it is because of exactly what you're saying, that they're seeing a need to have the indigenous game at the location. The good thing about it is that the Minister of Education is very, very open to this as being part of the process of having sports embedded in the school system. So we will have further discussions with him in relation to how we can not only, because I mentioned earlier this morning the study that we're doing or we're looking at to see how many youngsters within the primary school setting are actually involved in sports. And to have road tennis as one of the other attractions, so to speak, in terms of the discipline that they can get involved in, I think, we're on the way to doing that, but I will allow Mr. Clark to expand on my answer to you.
Dale Clark, road tennis star. In extending on what the Minister Griffith said, we have redesigned the National Primary Schools Program, and we're also going to be introducing a Secondary Schools Program. The challenge with the road tennis in the primary schools from the coaching aspect is the amount of coaches that we have. And in speaking to them, they say sometimes they go 1 week and the next week they don't get the same students. So that is why the grassroots program, where we could get the children out of the school setting, probably on Saturdays or a time frame after school, will lend to the school children getting to participate in road tennis so that we could develop a proper youth program when it comes to road tennis.
Chair will yield, but I know the minister, and I also know the Minister of Education, and I struggle to accept that we would want to say the best of Barbados is that you can't find a coach or a teacher who could play part-time coach so that all children have to play road tennis. And to the extent that you're getting different children, these are all very fixable problems, Minister, with some meetings and so on. As you said, the Minister of Education is also very keen. And I know the tennis czar has been walking around Barbados trying to push road tennis. There are too many people who are invested in road tennis's development for us not to be able to overcome what I think really and truly is a relatively small hurdle. And so, Minister, those are my questions. I just want to leave that final resting thought with you, Chair. But as I said, you've done a particularly very good job. Thanks.
Just to follow up, Minister, look, one of the things that is required now in sports on island is for the private sector to believe and to understand that they too have a role to play in the development of sports on island. Oftentimes we have situations where our national players go overseas to represent country, and then when they return home, there's a lot of pressure that comes to bear from we had a situation where an individual was managing our national netball team, and when she returned home, the company was restructuring, and the only body who was released was her, because they felt that she was spending too much time with one of our sports, a national team. So I believe it is time that not only the marketing department, but the owners of business on island see a need to join with government and to support some of our local athletes and some of our clubs in relation to the development of sports. You have businesses that are functioning within communities, and their schools and their clubs, and when they go seeking sponsorship, it's a resounding no. And you wonder how it is, because these are the same people that actually assist and help your business to grow. But there's no give back in relation to that. So whenever I see private sector involved in sports or with young people, I welcome it, because that is the way to go. That is the way that we're going to benefit. It is impossible for government to do this alone. And I'm hoping that given time, or the passage of time, that they will come to that place where they figure, well, we need to be able to sponsor a community team, or we need to be able to sponsor or adopt a school that is within the locale of my business.
Thank you. Honourable Member for St. Michael Central.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon to the Minister and all the members of his ministry. Thank you for all the hard work you've been doing. Sports is essential in community development as well. Many young men especially get opportunities from sports. And as we know right now, we're going through a little bit of a crisis in terms of all the criminal activity that has been happening. So I'm sure that your ministry is very essential in playing a role to help curb that rise in crime. My questions will be in relation to the community center in Station Hill, the Andrew Allen Community Center Chair. All the questions will be in relation to that. So the first question is, what plans does the ministry have for the Andrew Allen Community Center? I do see in the brief that there's scheduled to be $80,000 worth in repairs. So if you could just walk us through what that would look like so that my constituents can have something amazing to look forward to.
Thank you for the question, Honourable Member. Yes, the center that you refer to, I am familiar with it. For a number of years, I had some battles at that location in basketball with the marshal sitting in the back of me, who is probably one of the best basketball coaches on island. But we need to be able to have these centers functioning not only for sports, but where there's no community center, then these locations can be pressed into use by community development for staging some of the courses that we offer at the community level. But I will allow Sports Council, Mr. Matthias, or the director to come back to you to further explain plans for your community, your center.
That falls under community development, sir. Andrew Ali Center. Yeah.
Mr. Hollingsworth will take that.
Thank you, Minister. John Hollingsworth, Chief Community Development Officer. The Andrew Allen Community Center is a very vibrant center in that specific area, St. Michael Central, I think it is, St. Michael Central. Yes, one of the last activities we would have had there was a nail technology course. Unfortunately, it had to be relocated because there was some violence in the area, and we had to move it to Bush Hall. Nevertheless, the program continued, and the participants were a bit reluctant to go back there because of that particular experience. Nevertheless, in relation to the condition, the physical condition of the center, we have recognized that there's need for significant upgrading, and we have had our maintenance supervisor take a look at the facility. He has completed his scope of works. This was only recently, though, I must add. This was like 2 months ago. And what we are in the process of doing is getting the contractors to tender for the repairs based on the scope of works that were completed. Very soon, not very soon, but the next financial year, we should be able to effect those repairs. What my concern is, though, especially in light of the past incident that caused us to prematurely end a program, is the deteriorating condition of the environs of the particular facility. We will seek to address those as well so that the center can maintain its vibrancy and that we can have or maintain the type of programs that we want to have for that particular area. But it's definitely on the cards, because we do recognize it is falling into a state of, I don't want to say dilapidation, but a poor state. Let me just leave it at that.
Thank you. So my follow-up to that would be, in your repairs, would you be willing, or do you have plans to include a wheelchair ramp so that those disabled persons can also have access to the facility?
Installing wheelchair ramps or access for persons with disabilities will not only be exclusive to the Andrew Allen Center. We're looking to focus that on all the community centers across the island, all 37, where they do not currently exist, because we do recognize that persons with disabilities should have the same rights and accessibility to societal infrastructure, societal programs, and we are seeking assiduously to integrate them not only into community-based programs, but into all aspects of social life in Barbados.
Thank you. My next follow-up would be in relation to the same Andrew Allen, but we're now speaking of the pasture. As we know, recently, and I'll be very careful how I say this, some persons have been building on this space. So what plans does the ministry have to ensure that those persons don't further encroach and come further in so as to limit the actual open space we have available to those persons, especially those young men who may want to play sports on that open pasture/playing field?
The pasture is not actually under the management of the Community Development Department, but we have recognized that, and in the plan to refurbish the center, we plan to put systems in place to ensure that there's no further encroachment on the land. Because right now, based on what I have seen, vehicles drive across the pasture, and they are damaging the field. So we plan to, in the reconstruction, or in the refurbishment, to put systems in place, whether it be a barricade or something of that sort, to ensure that the encroachment on the playing area is no longer affects the functionality of the center.
If I can add to that, Honourable Member, your predecessor was struggling with this issue for a long time as well, so it is not something that happened overnight. I remember when I was at the Ministry of Housing, it was an issue then. The most that we can do is to probably try to see if we can put some bollards at a particular location to ensure now that they don't drive onto the hard court or to utilize more of the facility, but it really is outside of our scope to stop them from building further on the land. And just for the records, that coach I mentioned is Adrian Cragwell, as you full aware. Yes?
Thank you. And then my final follow-up then would be in relation to the hard court, which you just mentioned, Minister. I believe the hard court needs some work. And then also, we do have lights, but I don't know if the lights are working because I have not seen them on for a very, very long time. So if you could just elaborate on that situation.
Again, thank you. I am aware of the situation Mr. Cragwell would have mentioned to me, and I really am not sure why by now the matter was not addressed, but he would have mentioned to me the issues that they're having with some water problems on the hard court and a couple other issues at the location. But rest assured that the matter will be addressed in the shortest period of time to make sure that the Station Hill Cavaliers are able to utilize the facility to the fullest capacity.
Thank you, Minister. I yield back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. George South.
Thank you, Chair. Blessed good evening to the team of Ministry of Sports and Community Empowerment. I just want to ask a few questions, but before I just want to congratulate the Minister. And I'm happy to see the work that is revealing itself in this wonderful place. And indeed, both within sports and community empowerment, community development department. And I am happy to see Mr. Hollingsworth and also Mr. Clark added to your very well-esteemed team. Now, I have a few questions for you related, and my colleague who has just left because she had to go to a meeting, Mr. Chair, has asked me to intervene on her behalf in a few matters that are related to St. George North, and he said I can't do it. Nonetheless, I will proceed. The Newbury facility. This is a facility that named after the world's draft champion. And the state of the facility is not a good representation of our world's draft champion. It's dilapidated. We have, many times I've spoken to my good friend, Mr. Morrill, and of course he has responded. He always does. He would always respond to me. The netball court, Newbury, was once, and I see your finance manager who's from that area as well. Newbury was once a beacon of netball in St. George. Now the court is indeed in a state of disrepair, just like the facility. Me as parliamentary representative, I'm ashamed at the state of that facility. And I know you have some funds in the estimates for the facility, but it's been too long, Mr. Minister, and I would like to know, give me some information, because the residents there listening. I was embarrassed to even walk that area a few weeks ago, and I don't want again to be embarrassed sometime in the future to walk that area, because I ain't going nowhere. Give me some information as to what will be done to that facility. Need some paint, it's always closed up. I'm embarrassed, sir, as the parliamentary representative. So are the people of Newbury.
Thank you for your kind words, and thank you for the question. I too traverse that area every day, going and coming from work, and it is our intention as far as possible to make sure that every single facility under us is fit for purpose. I will ask the director of the National Sports Council to respond to you, and maybe Mr. Matthias, if necessary.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Member, for the question. Neil Merle, Director, National Sports Council. A few years ago, indeed, we did some refurbishing work, painting work, and toilet facility work at Newbury. We are still to finalize work on the netball court itself. We have some monies provisioned for the upcoming financial year, which we will seek to undertake work there. So we have Newbury in hand, at least for the hard court and the multipurpose court. The pavilion, we did some painting a few years ago. We can always do some more painting coming up this financial year. Thank you.
Sir, I no longer sit on the front bench. I have a little more leverage. My hands are free to say certain things. And I will openly, I don't want to embarrass the ministry. At the end of the day, I need something done to that facility at Newbury in a short time frame. We have lived with it for too long. It's been closed up. I heard you answer the painting. It's been closed up. They have a number of young people in that area. No type of activity in terms of community development in there because the facility, and I can't blame community development because the facility is always closed. And I am certain if community development knows that it is available, the young people will have somewhere to go and to indeed learn something. Just like Greens is open, Ellison open. So please pay some attention to this facility.
Honourable Member, one of the things that I want to say to you is that, again, it is a situation where, and this will come into play, I've asked community development to look at, again, giving some birth to community groups. Because you or I functioning at Newbury is not going to make that much of a difference if it is compared to a community group in the area that is taking responsibility for organizing training, for organizing sporting facilities at the same location. So the major push now is, especially where we have these facilities, to get a functioning community group in place that will be able to organize and to do things within the area.
Once you fix the facility, I guarantee you can get that.
So noted.
My second question, Mr. Chair, and you know, I love this ministry, so don't think I'm hard on this ministry. You have a number of very good officers in this ministry, both in community and a very good PS, both in community development and in sports. And the minister is doing a wonderful job, so don't think that I'm being hard on this ministry at all. I'm just being focused because I represent over 10,000 people and others across the country. My second question, Mr. Chair. I would boast to say that I have one of the best functioning clubs in this country, one of the largest in this country, 2 cricket teams in the BCA division, second division, and intermediate. Elton FC in the Premier League of the BFA, a netball team. And while I was in your chair, sir, youth, you no longer have the responsibility of the youth. I formed a youth arm, thanks to the youth commissioner, very good one. I heard she has moved on now. And we have a youth arm, still walking, Shaggy Bears. So I have close to 200, and I'm the president for the past 8 years of that wonderful club in Ellerton. But we don't have a car park. When I left there, I was told we had plans for the car park, no car park, many rainfalls. And we have hundreds of persons who come to watch, especially when Malvern plays St. John Culture, and there's any rain, they have to park on the road. I see gyms going up all over the country, sir. We discussed this. I know you and I spoke on this, but the others must hear, because the people in St. George asked me to raise this. For such a large club, I don't have any of those gyms. And I go and I see places where 6 persons gather and they have a gym. I hope it's not any conspiracy against my club or myself. And I would love to see one of those outdoor gyms at the largest club, one of the largest clubs in rural Barbados. And while I am at it, I must compliment community development for the work they're doing in Ellerton, because it is married. You have the community center, and then you have the sporting facility. But the sporting facility is where I focus my attention, because the community center was indeed fixed, and a lot of work is being done there thanks to the community development. But the cricketers and the footballers and the netballers, they're not happy. So I want to know how soon I can get a gym. You and I discussed this, yes? And also the car park. Because I, just like St. John Culture, I'm a bigger club than St. John Culture, and we have very good cricket teams. But I extend beyond you, because I have a football team and a netball team. So over to you, Mr. Minister. One more.
Honourable member, what I would say to you is that over a period of time, as I mentioned earlier, every single constituency will be outfitted with one of those community gyms, because we understand that there's a need to have them within the communities. And in relation to the car park, I'm sure that Sports Council will look to see how best that we can factor funds to be allocated for the car park. But what I would say to you is that if there's a decision between the construction of a facility and building the car park, I'm going to go with the construction of the facility. But we will get to repairing the car park, because I think plans were put in place to do that. The other thing is that it is impossible, as you would be aware, for government to do every single thing at one time. I saw an article in the paper, if it was not today, it was yesterday, where a federation is asking for a home. What we're trying to do is to ensure that instead of building 62 or 60 facilities to house every single federation, wherever it is possible for us to do a multi-purpose facility, then we will do that. In a similar way to what is happening to the former netball stadium, that it will now become a facility for netball, volleyball, and basketball. So I understand the urgency of having one of these facilities, i.e. the gym, in your location to benefit your club. And we will get around to putting that there as soon as we are importing those community gyms, and in due course you will be able to get one. I'm going to ask Ms. Warwood to speak on the installation of the community gyms across the island. Ms. Warwood.
Hello, good afternoon. Sabrina Warwood, Senior Accountant, National Sports Council. To Minister's point, currently we have 13 outdoor gyms across the island. Every financial year, we purchase about 7, and the aim as to expand it across the island. There's Bush Hall, currently at the gymnasium, Heights Village, Indian Ground in St. Peter, God Hill, Bridgefield, Border Hall, Mount Hill, Glebe, St. Martin, Bayfield, and Zion Hill. We actually have about maybe 7 or so we're installing before the end of this financial year. I mean, the purchase, as the minister said, in terms of purchasing another 7, and we have another 7 to purchase for the next financial year.
Thank you. So in essence, honorable member, we will be moving across the island to install these community gyms. So rest assured that yours is coming at Ellerton to benefit your club.
And at Greens, because you have a mini stadium at Greens as well.
I didn't get that.
No, you said Ellerton, but I also said you have the mini stadium at Greens, and I'm sure with a mini stadium comes those type of equipment. So, but my final question though relates to the mini stadium actually, because the concept, I know we created the concept some way back in 2022, 2023, and I know we looked around at bleachers and everything, but I want to know, because I'm still focusing in my area, because you're doing a wonderful job, so I have to be parochial to get certain things done in my area. You know, nationally, I think you're doing a wonderful job. But the whole aspect, I think it was the member for Christchurch West who brought to that place pictures of I heard the member for St. James North mention it, pictures of pavilions where we don't have to engage in too much expansive building construction, but we can utilize the containerized concept to build pavilions. I have in St. George South Boarded Hall, who's in BCL cricket, and I'm afraid to say it, but these guys have to urinate on the field and in the bush, sorry, and the Lord help them if they have to go and do a number, a different number. There's no facilities there, and they're playing BCL cricket every Saturday. So I want to know where we are with respect to the pavilions, that concept that we created ourselves in the other place that I used to be, and if we will have those installed this year, how many we'll be looking to install across Barbados, and where are the locations, because I am dying for one at Boarded Hall. They're playing cricket, and I know the young girls ain't gonna engage in anything because they don't have the facilities for them to utilize if they have an emergency doing a number 1 or 2 or otherwise. So over to you, sir.
Thank you. I didn't get the location that you mentioned.
Boarded Hall, but that's okay. Not the Boarded Hall, that's the parochial aspect of the question. But in terms of the broad plans to roll out those community pavilions across the country.
Yes, we have looked at the container solution because it is a lot more feasible than the bricks and mortar. But I will ask Sports Council, either the director or Mr. Matthias, to respond to you in relation to the container solution that we are proposing.
Good afternoon. Nicholas Matthias, National Sports Council. We're actually piloting that container layout with St. Matthias. And once we go through all the nuts and bolts and cross the T's, dot the I's, using St. Matthias as our framework, we'll be able to give you a more in-depth understanding on how we'll roll it out across the country. So until we finalize or get to culmination or completion at St. Matthias, we will best be able to answer that question for you, sir.
All right, thank you. And I just want, someone sang a song, Don't Forget Me, and he was included. I singing this evening, Friday. Don't forget me, please include me. All right. While I'm there, and my final intervention relates to Sweet Vale playing field.
Honorable member, you have one final. You just
Yes, thank
gave
you.
Honorable member, you already gave your final. That
Oh,
was the
sorry,
last
sorry,
question
I
that
didn't
you
know
did.
that. That means I actually miscount then. But would you give me the latitude to?
Not at this point in time, sir.
Okay,
You'll
sir,
already
no
come
problem.
back again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Honorable member for St. Philip West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this is a follow-on question from a number of other questions that had been asked earlier about pavilions. I think all of us would like the pavilions in our constituencies to be done. I have got one at Lowthers, which is at Gordon Walters, which burned down a long time ago, many years ago. And I also have one at St. Martin's, Harlington area, which already has a foundation there that has been rotten, really, and we haven't been able to get that. My question is, for those areas and those constituencies across Barbados, but mine I am most interested in, where the solution for a pavilion is not immediate, like we will not get it next month or next week, what are the interim temporary solutions that can be provided to ensure that there's adequate shelter, adequate coverage, adequate space for people to use the washrooms, etc., at those same facilities where that is required? So the question is about temporary interim facilities when we know those pavilions are pending.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Now, you've thrown something new into the works in terms of temporary solutions, because we are focusing on remedying the particular problem by providing a pavilion at the locations. I don't know that we have looked at temporary solutions to facilitate what you're speaking of, but I guess what can happen is that my team and we can go back to the drawing boards to see what can be put in place. If you have solutions in terms of what we can do, then I'm open to that. But we have not looked at temporary solutions in relation to the pavilions. I'm not sure if Mr. Matthias or the director would have discussed something and they can share, but I know that we have not looked in a formal way at those particular solutions. And so Director, if you care to speak, or Mr. Matthias, as far as the temporary solutions for pavilions is concerned.
Thank you,
Mr. Chair, if I can just say before Mr. Merle answers, we have come up with the community from Waldron and from the community around St. Patrick's. We have come up with a solution, a possible solution, temporary solution until such time. So we'll be happy to have that discussion as well.
We would love for you to share that with the ministry so that we can facilitate not only you, but other areas that we may be able to press these temporary solutions into being.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Member for St. Philip West, for the question in terms of temporary solution. Quickly off the top of my head, I know Nicholas is more inclined than me, but quickly off the top of my head, I'm thinking that maybe the said retrofitted containers is something that we can look at. 1, 2, tentage, temporary tents, perhaps something that we can also look at. And 3, if there's a nearby school or facility nearby that can be used temporarily which is perhaps adjacent to the field, maybe that is something that we can look at. But I would defer to Mr. Matthias, who may have a little more knowledge than myself on this regard. Thank you.
Good afternoon again, Nicholas Matthias. As the minister said, the temporary solution was nothing that we had intimately looked into. And if you do have a solution, we are definitely all ears. So I look forward to meeting with you at some point in time in the very near future to see what we can work with and what we can put in place.
Mr. Chairman, I yield because my next question is not related to my first, so I yield.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Member for Christchurch South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Minister, thanks to you and your team for the discussion thus far. I think that I am in the unenviable position. So while others will complain either about the state or the conditions for their community centers, Christchurch South doesn't have a community center at all. And therefore, I am asking if there are any plans in the works to be able to ensure that the good people of Christchurch South will be able to have a community center of their own anytime in the near future.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The truth is that this is the first time that we're hearing a voice from Christchurch South. So we're prepared to work with you as long as you can identify a location. We will do the site visit and we will put the necessary plans in place to make sure that you are not disadvantaged in your constituency.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. I feel very good to be the voice that is heard for Christchurch South, Minister. But until such time, can you let me know what opportunities through community development for training, etc.? Because of course we do the site visit, it will take some time. So over that period, what can Christchurch South expect from community development by the way of programs?
You know, we have a number of initiatives going. I will first allow the Deputy Chief to speak to you about the community engagement program that we're rolling out that is impacting the lives of a number of young people, and then the Chief will speak to you about other programs that are coming that you can source in Christchurch South. Deputy Chief.
Thank you, Minister. Good afternoon. Kay Hines, Deputy Chief Community Development Officer. I must say, we may not have a community center in Christchurch South, but the department can accommodate programs within that area through the faith-based organizations. We can form collaborations with these organizations and have our programs within the churches. In regards to the community engagement and educational program, this was a program that was launched in 2024. We would have collaborated with a number of agencies, namely the National Insurance and Social Security Service, the Barbados Revenue Authority, Sagicor Bank, and the Public Workers Credit Union. We would have recognized that a number of persons lack the basic knowledge in relation to the regulatory services as well as the financial services sector. So we brought together personnel from these 4 organizations, and we held sessions at a number of community centers throughout the island, as well as faith-based organizations. In 2024, we held 12 sessions, and in 2025, we held a further 11 sessions. Overall, 300 persons plus were reached, and they were able to engage the NIS officers in terms of the various services offered by that department. The sat-down persons were able to sit down and have that one-on-one discussion with an NIS officer. Similarly, they were also able to do the same with the Barbados Revenue Authority's officers, as well as the credit union and the banking officers. I must say persons were really pleased that the department brought this initiative to the actual communities. They didn't have to dress and and go to a community center, but within their own communities, they were able to come, sit down, and hear about the regulatory services as well as the financial services. And this financial year, we intend to continue the program throughout the island, as well as forming further collaborations with other government departments. Because I must say, some other government departments have indicated their interest in coming on board with the department. Thank you.
Chief, you want to expand on some of the programs that we're doing?
Yes, thank you, Minister. What the Community Development Department is doing in relation to the absence or in recognition of the absence of a center in Christchurch South is that we, as Ms. Hines was saying, we tend to utilize other facilities within the constituency, namely schools, which would be Christchurch Foundation. Then there's the Church Hall of Christchurch Parish Church, because it's part of the fact that there may be a facility operated by the Community Development Department that is absent. We tend to utilize other places that can accommodate us. As it relates to a facility, as the Minister would have indicated, we would need to have some kind of guidance as to the most suitable place. When it was occupied in another entity, public sector entity that is, I knew that there was one located in Oistins upstairs, that facility there, but that wouldn't be suitable any longer because I do not even know what it is used for now, because as I would have just indicated to the member for St. Michael Central, we have to ensure that all persons have access to these facilities, particularly persons with disabilities. So we would definitely have to look at a new facility for Christchurch South or retrofitting some abandoned building or something like that, of that nature. But rest assured that there's a community development officer assigned to the area and a community development aide. They not necessarily be directly located in Christchurch South, but we can have the aide. One is stationed at St. Christopher, the St. Christopher complex, for sure. And then there is Briar Hall. It's pretty fact that they may be far apart. The aides are responsible for ensuring that all communities are covered with our programming. And having raised the issue here today, I will seek to ensure from the senior officer assigned to that area that programs are put in place to ensure that your constituents benefit from our community impact program, where they can receive training, where they can receive information, and whatever else that the Community Development Department offers. Even, in spite of that too, although the Community Development Department is restricted in terms of space, we do assist organizations from the constituency with their programs. Most recently, we would have had, I'm not sure Maxwell is your constituency, nevertheless, but it is not only the Community Development Department that stage programs. We have persons, organizations, NGOs, individuals who design programs that we facilitate by funding, by providing technical assistance. So all these are possible.
Thank you, Minister, to you and your team for those responses. It leads me to the question then about how do you kind of market the activities that you are offering, because clearly from what I'm hearing, there are a number of things, but certainly, and again, I'm a new representative, but certainly been on the ground for a while, and I'm not aware of these specific initiatives. How do you advertise, make people aware? I mean, I don't even know who the community development officer is for the area, so I don't know if that is something that I call, do they come? And where there is, I've not heard anybody say, well, this is the community development officer for the area. Foundation is actually not in my constituency, but I'm just saying, how are we kind of making sure, and this is now even outside of my constituency, that people are kind of aware of the services that are being offered or that we can call on community development for?
Thank you for the question. Two things. My PS would have mentioned earlier the new program that community development is running on television. In addition to that, it is no longer joined, but your youth commissioner, in addition to the community aid for your area, should be keeping you up to date in relation to those programs that are being offered. So I think, yes, we're gonna have to look at, my team and I will have to look at marketing in a different way to get the information out to everyone, but the youth commissioners and the community aides are the ones who are supposed to feed back information to you about some of the programs that are happening within your particular constituency so that you could be fully aware of what is on offer.
In addition to what the minister shared, the Community Development Department has a website. And on that website, we list all the programs that we stage from time to time. And the programs that are staged by the Community Development Department are not exclusive to the particular areas. You can come from any part of the country. If you have an interest, say, in robotics, this is a program that we recently launched, robotics. The other popular programs are mixology, balloon artistry, nail artistry. You just have to go on the site and register for these programs. And what we have found is that there are significant amount of followers. I don't know the exact number of followers, but within a short space of time, the more popular programs are subscribed, oversubscribed, and we have to actually close it. And what we do in situations like that is whole additional programs once those are completed, because the program lasts for about 12 weeks, 2 hours per day, at most 2 days per week. So persons are welcome once they go on the website, comdev.barbados.bb, they can register for these programs, and once they can get there, in spite of the fact that it may not be in their direct community, they can participate in these programs.
Thank you for that. Minister, I just want to kind of just make a suggestion as well. So I understand that, of course, the community development would not necessarily perhaps want to directly work, say, with constituency officers so that we don't politicize the role, but I think that constituency officers can also be a good way to disseminate information, right? So whereas many people might not, if I tell the young fellas in my constituency to go up on a website to fill out a form, they might be more unlikely to do so, as opposed to if you send that information to me, even if it is written, I can get my team do a flyer or something like that, and they pick it up from the chat that I have, which has about approximately at least 240-something people thus far from within my constituency. And then we can then be able to help you disseminate that information on the ground as well, right? I think it would be useful to look at other means to be able to do so.
Yeah, I take your suggestion, but it is something that is normally done. But in addition to that, the PAs can also source this information and share with every single MP. So it's not an issue, and I thank you for the suggestion.
Thank you, Minister. Chair yields.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Michael East.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am putting this question mainly on the behalf of the people of St. Michael's East, and more in particular, Liquorice Village, Ivy, Martinique, and Haggerall area. Blemins is the access, social access of those 3 specific communities, but there are others around there. I'm trying to ask for a more inclusive program, emerging from the earth, emerging from the people in the community itself. You have established an exercise unit to the northern side of Blemins, and you've also put some nets in place for cricketers. It is not easy for the people within the community in which these units were established to have access. Do you have a policy that is more accessible than people having to look from the outside, see the equipment there, can participate in the use of the equipment, and even young cricketers, and if you understand the genesis of cricket, well, some of the best cricketers are the ones who did not come out of the established sports clubs around Barbados, especially out of the BCL. Do you have a policy that will allow the groups, you have established groups there like at Blemings, like Benfica, Ivory Rovers. Ivory Rovers and Benfica produce national players, and sometimes do both in cricket and in football, and sometimes they want the same freedoms that other people from outside have, using local facilities, and local people cannot participate. Do you have a policy, or have you taken into consideration how you can make the system a little more inclusive for them?
Honourable Member, what I would say to you is that not a single location under the ministry is exclusive to anyone. And all of the facilities that we are operating are free to any and everybody who want to use the facilities. I'll come back to you, but we have a gym at the gymnasium that is open to everyone who want to pay. It is also free to national athletes. At Blenheim, because of the location and because it lends itself to developing it in the way how it has been developed, it is a facility that would not in any way exclude any member of your constituency being able to use the practice nets, to use the field, or to use the road tennis courts that are there for the academy. So I am not sure why members of your constituency would say to you that they're being excluded from utilizing the facilities at Blenheim, but as far as I know, it is an open policy. It is a government facility. It's not a personal club by any means or any stretch of the imagination.
Okay. So I'm very glad that the world at large is part of my witness to the freedom which those sportsmen can have, and I hope that they heard very well. Hage all.
Before you go, Honourable Member, I think the Director wants to respond to you as well.
Yeah, thank you, Minister. Yes, once it is scheduled, because of course we know that we have a number of teams, cricket teams across Barbados who use the facility, especially the cricket nets at Blenheim. And therefore, once you can write in and let us know, then anybody can then have access to that and the road tennis nets. And of course, we recognize the efforts, of course, of the Mylars Fund Run that you have every year. I think it's about 13 years you've had it now, where the whole of the community is galvanized into using, running around the community. So yes, the persons from within the community can have access, but it has to be on a structured basis. And just by writing to the council and just letting us know, because obviously the nets and so on are scheduled. So that would not be a large issue. All right, and while I'm at it, if I can, Minister, responding to the member for St. George North before regarding Sheffield, indicated, of course, that the Sports Council maintains the grounds and we'll put lights in at Sheffield. And I just wanted to reiterate that the club, they own the pavilion and not the National Sports Council. So I just wanted to get that in there so I can respond to that. Thank you.
Yeah. Probably this is a continuation of the first question. I'm glad that you recognize the impact of the 5K. 2 5Ks every year, and you've seen the growth in terms of the quality of the whole activity, on which I hope that we can get a little more help from you next time. Not that you don't, but a little more help. So I'm just talking about the qualitative development of the activities as well, apart just as much as I'm talking about the quantitative development in terms of national support and participants in the race itself. So I'll be coming to you. So that's not just there's not a question, there's a comment to enhance the answer that I was given. Now, community development or empowerment, I'm also concerned about the Hackett Hall Center, what is happening there. The residents and the community is complaining for limited activities in the area, and they are also asking that at least 1 or 2 groups be given the right to be in possession of the key. So that at any time during the day, any person who is being with the credibility that we consider to be appropriate, if they want to have any kind of activities, they can go there. But what is happening now is that every time that they want to hold an activity, the request is usually coming from my office to yours. So I believe that we're looking at creating some wholesome behavior in all of these areas. So it's not just about sports, it's about the social adhesive nature of what sports can do to a community. And I believe that if you check the records, the official records, you will recognize that I have had my fair share, along with other communities of the same kind that I'm talking about, Liquid Trilogy, Ivy Martini, and those areas. I believe that social activities can do a lot to help heal the social tensions that we are experiencing across the entire community. So I just want to make that suggestion to the minister and to the entire staff of the ministry.
As mentioned before, Honourable Member, post today, every member will get information pertaining to the construct of the center management committees that will do exactly what you're asking for, and that is to be able to have access to the communities after staff move away at 4:30. And part of the onus is on you to identify persons to help function or to work on those center management committees that will then, in a sense, own the community centers after hours from like 4:30 until 11:30 at night. So you will get information in relation to the center management committees.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No more questions, no more comments.
Honourable Member for St. Philip South.
Thank you, Chair. My question is to the Minister. Minister, first of all, let me start by thanking you for the support you gave my constituents at Victoria Club with the erection of the floodlights. I'm indeed grateful that we were able to get those out early. But I do believe that the project with mini stadia across Barbados is one that needs greater interrogation from the point of view that I'm sure there were stated objectives when this project was established. And with great anticipation right across Barbados, many of our constituents were looking forward to them. Can you tell us if those stated objectives have been met, what has been done so far, what has the response been like from the people who have been recipients, and what are the plans to make sure that you continue to roll out so that a constituency like St. Philip South, for example, can benefit from a mini stadium and therefore be able to be part of the national celebration of having such a facility.
Thank you, Honourable Member. You know, the mini stadium project was a massive success. There was one dissenting voice about the mini stadium project, and as you and I know, that voice is no longer relevant. One of the first indications that the mini stadium projects was working and working at an effective level would have been the St. Michael's School staging their Glow Sports at Briar Hall. And with the Usain Bolt not being available to them, they were able to close all of the gates at Briar Hall with the exception of one, where they were taking funds to enter the facility. And in speaking with one of the organizers of the Glow Sports, they said it allowed them that year to make substantial money that helped them in relation to the track team as far as travel and preparation is concerned. I have seen the need and the success rate of the mini stadium projects. You would have heard earlier about the mobile bleachers that we were able to move to different locations in order to impact seating at different events. But the officer who was responsible and did a fantastic job in relation to the rollout of the mini stadium project was Deputy Director Bascom, and it will allow him to speak a little on the mini stadium projects. I would tell you that the only issue that we had really with the mini stadium projects is that John Public somehow liked the plants more than the National Sports Council. So we had plants at locations, and the next day they were someplace else. Deputy Director Bascom, just speak to the mini stadium project and your work.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Mr. Chair. As far as the mini stadium is concerned, I'm Mr. Bascom, Deputy Director, National Sports Council. As far as the mini stadium is concerned, now that we've received the permanent bleachers, I can say that it is nearing completion. The slabs are already in place for those 17 permanent bleachers. We have said earlier that we have the temporary, the mobile ones that we move around. So we are in a position where, if the needs be, we can move around those bleachers. Like the minister just said, we are still to conduct some planting at some of these facilities because a number of the plants were either stolen or they were eaten by stray animals. So we were justified in closing the big gates because the animals were going in there and making a mess of the plants. The general public close to those mini stadia who had a love for bougainvillea actually stole them. As a matter of fact, there was one case where the NCC was on the western side of one of those facilities doing some planting, and some people on the eastern side were taking out the bougainvillea, were only planted half an hour earlier. That's how bad it was. So there's just a little snagging to be done, like I said, to bring completeness to the facilities. Like I said, closing the big gates because there are a number of pedestrian gates at all the facilities, but we had to close the big gates because vehicles were actually going on the fields and people were doing donuts, etc., and destroying the fields. As far as what was mentioned earlier in respect to the center management committees, yes, we have already received from Parishland only a few days ago representation for the club there to take possession. I'm using that word loosely, to take care of that facility. So we're looking forward to other clubs sending in the requests, because we do not want to expend the amount of money that we have on those facilities for malicious damage to be occasioned to them. Thank you.
Chair, my follow-up question will be that I'm happy to note that you do have collapsible or mobile facilities that can be moved around the country. So I state for the record, you need not put one in St. Philip itself, because we can always rely on you to move one there if needed. And so with that saving in your budget, I'm asking that you consider Gemswick, which has a plane facility that was supposed to have been established since we came to power in 2018. And so far, nothing has been done. And I would like for you to facilitate them at Gemswick with the budget that you are going to save with a pavilion and a playing field at Gemswick with floodlights, because I believe that a promise made should be one that ought to be carried out. And therefore, we promised the people at Gemswick that they would have been facilitated. I will never pressure you for a mini stadium in St. Philip South, because there's no need. But certainly to give us a facility at Gemswick with the gym, a community gym, is something that I would crave your indulgence in, and look forward in this coming financial year to have it done at Gemswick.
Honourable Member, look, as you're aware, government is, through my ministry, trying to make sure that all of our sporting facilities are up to scratch, fit for purpose, so members of the surrounding communities can be involved in some form of physical activities. We will do the site visit to Gemswick because we have started the process of identifying what we call dedicated football fields. And the Honourable Member for St. George South started the question, and I would say to him that in Sweetville, that facility is one that was earmarked as a dedicated football field. But we now have to put in some work as far as the infrastructure is concerned. And similar to what is happening or what you're requesting, Honourable Member, we will do the visit to your proposed location, and we will see where maybe the gym can be sited. And if it is the case that the area that you're identifying as a playing field can be upgraded into something that is better than what currently obtains, then we will do that. Yeah?
Thank you, Minister. And Mr. Chairman, my final follow-up will be, when you're doing the visit, I wish for you to also visit Victoria. I know there's a young cricket under 13 academy going on there. Chair, with your permission, this is also done in association with Jaffa Archer. And I would like for us to be able to help them to expand that program there. They are prepared to work with the ministry in putting a pavilion there and also carving out a space for road tennis. I think the people who are behind the project are world-renowned and good enough to be trusted to be able to carry out such a project in collaboration with the ministry.
We will assist. The fact, too, that you're mentioning junior program, I think you said U13. One of the things that I would love to see as Minister of Sports is that our established clubs on island, and I'm not sure, Honourable Member for St. George South if this is happening at Malvern. But too often we are lacking a developmental program on island for our young athletes, people who are involved in sports. I mentioned earlier that government gave all of the national federations $25,000 to be used for developmental programs with their respective national federations. We have not seen reports. I believe the National Sports Council got 3 reports out of the 50+ national federations in terms of how that money was used for developmental purposes. But there's an absolute need for established clubs to have a feeder program put in place to develop our young athletes, regardless of the disciplines. So you have, for example, cricket clubs that are functioning in an area where there are primary schools, and nothing is being done from that established club to reach out into the primary schools to say, look, we are going to adopt you and we're going to work with you in terms of our junior program. The National Sports Council, there's the Herman Griffith competition, and it is really unfortunate that all primary schools on island are not involved. Now, I understand the lower role in terms of maybe it is impossible to form a team. When you look at my constituency in St. John, there are 2 primary schools and the roles are not high. But there's nothing wrong in combining those 2 primary schools to form one team to be involved in the process. And I think maybe at some point in time, as a government, as the National Sports Council, we're gonna have to start making decisions that if it is the case, you're gonna source subventions from government in order to run your clubs, that we mandate at some point in time that there must be a junior program attached to these established clubs to ensure that we can have some of our young men and females involved in some structured activities as a result of the clubs believing that it is important for them to give back through the junior programs.
Mr. Chairman, I note the comments of the minister, but wish to reiterate the importance of that academy, given the persons behind it, and to also state for the records that we have had great success in the West Indies under-19 team. There are about 3 players who came out of that academy. So there's a lot that can be done to help facilitate young players across all of St. Philip. And I would want for us to make this a project that the ministry itself can take credit for.
We will have the meeting, and however we can assist, rest assured that we will do that to impact these youngsters as well.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Member for St. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Glad for the last question from the Honourable Member for St. Philip South. I happen to hold the view that there are a number of very good clubs in Barbados that are doing well, especially at the level of the developmental programs for youth, both in cricket and in football. And a lot of the established clubs in Barbados should take note as to how they are developed. Indeed, many coaches across both sports, cricket and football, have their own private training programs at many of the facilities across Barbados. And they do very well. They're very lucrative they're well run, well organized, they go on tours that don't require any sponsorship from the state or assistance from the private sector, indeed. Many parents are associated with the organization of the work of the club, the training, the practices, the matches, and all of the activities associated with these clubs. And sometimes, as a state-owned entity, ministry, we try to throw money at the solutions out in the community when that is not necessarily warranted. And I just want to caution that it is not a case where government has to go there and do everything. We create the enabling environment, the facilities, yes. But I think more has to be done to bring the regulation of sports administrative bodies across Barbados into line. They should have annual general meetings. They should have audited financial statements. They should have a list of members. The sport should be regulated. They should be teaching people about betting, illegal betting, anti-doping, all of these things in a regulated environment. And I think we need now to put the legislative framework behind the requirement that every national sport rise to a certain level administratively as to how the clubs at the various communities across Barbados are functioning. Sometimes they don't function at all. And some of these clubs are beneficiaries of funding from the state or from the private sector, and in some cases, they're not run very well. So I just want to ask as a first question, where are we with the sports development legislative framework?
Thank you for the question. Let me deal with some of the stuff that you mentioned first. Look, one of the organizations on island that is, they're not blowing their horn enough is the Barbados Olympic Association in relation to the training of individuals who function on the executive of a number of our national federations. I would have benefited from one of their programs over the period of time when I was in basketball. And I think if a lot more of our national federations would take up the offer that is coming from the BOA in relation to training, a lot of the things that you mentioned just now are offered by the BOA in terms of helping national federations to get strong. And I think, again, I think sometimes that it should be mandatory for the BOA and us to say to some of the federations, you need to be able to send some of your executives to participate in some of these courses because it can only redound to the benefit of how you run your national federation. Sports would have reached a stage now where it can't just be a friendly thing that I know everybody in this room and I'm up for election, so all of you sign up and come and vote for me and figure that that is the way how to run a federation. I think we have to realize that we have gone past that. In relation to your question, in relation to the legislation, I'm going to pass that to Mr. Rowe, who is the Sports Development Officer, to address your particular question.
Thank you for the question, Minister. As you would be aware, we have prepared the National Sports Policy, out of which will fall the Sports Development Act. And the Sports Development Act is intended to address matters such as that, the accountability and governance pertaining to the national federations and guiding the national federations. With respect to the Sports Development Act, part of the act will look at beyond just guiding them, but creating that framework, that legislative framework, that ensure that we can monitor and enforce what they do, what they're supposed to do, and what they actually do. For too long, we have been, as the minister indicated, provided funding for national sports organizations and clubs, and they're not doing exactly what they're supposed to do. So the framework will bring to bear a measure by which we can hold them accountable, one, but also provide that guidance and ensure that they know what they're supposed to do. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Minister, and through you to Mr. Rowe. I'm still on the theme of the development of the sport, the concept of sport development. Minister, a lot of work has been done, and he was spoken about the mini stadia and the importance of developing strong communities in Barbados through these facilities being provided. And I want to encourage you and the ministry to continue to roll out this program. It is really transforming lives in communities across Barbados. And thank you for the good work that you and your team have been doing. Now, one of the major sports in Barbados is horse racing, and we are on the team of sports development. And one of the areas in which we have done well as a country has been in the production of very fine quality jockeys and indeed trainers. I happen to know that there is a stable in Melrose St. Thomas that recently produced a Gold Cup winner. And indeed, the rider of that horse, great Barbadian jockey, spent some time in Melrose riding in the early stages. We have to do better to facilitate the development of more jockeys. We have the talent, we have the name, brand, and recognition, and we have the record of producing quality jockeys. So where are we in relation to developing the framework at a more institutional level for a jockey school or to promote horse racing in Barbados? I have somewhere in mind that if you needed land, that we can facilitate the kind of amateur activities in Melrose, but we can speak about that later. But I want to hear your question, your answer first. Thanks, Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Member. It is unfortunate that you would have waited almost a week after to share information about the Gold Cup winner, but that is okay. We had plans in place, and at some point in time, I'm hoping that we can revisit that. But plans were in place to do exactly what you're asking for, to develop a riding school in Barbados. We met with the Turf Club in relation to how we would traverse rolling out that particular plan. It was stalled for some reasons that I prefer not to share here, but it is something that I'm hoping that at some point in time in the future we can go back to, because I think it would be not only beneficial to us here, but you and I know that we have been exporting a lot of jockeys, not only in the region, but at the international level, and they've been doing well. So it is something that we started to look at. We had to shelve it, but hopefully at some point in time we can get back to it, because it is not only the jockeys, but from those initial discussions, I realized that there's a whole industry around the horse racing that can benefit a lot of youngsters on island. I was really surprised to learn that I think there's a young female who's still in school that was riding on Gold Cup there.
She also from Melrose.
She's also from Melrose? You have a lot of secrets in Melrose. But yeah, I think that it is going to open another avenue for some of our youngsters to be involved in sports in a totally different area. So I take your comments, and I will be paying some attention to see how we can get back on stream as far as the development of that particular horse racing academy, so to speak.
My last follow-up in relation to the whole concept of the development of sports development, Minister, is we do a very good job of producing sportsmen and women in a number of various sports in Barbados, no less cricket, for example. But at a certain level, we must accept for us to penetrate into the professional market and compete at international World Cups, Olympics, and various games and championships, that the level of sport development professionals and players, support professionals in Barbados is not where it needs to be. I'm talking about the coaches, the trainers, the physios, etc. There's no time, in my view, for a specialist attention to be given to the development of a facility at the institutional level, a school for sportsmen and women, a specialist school in Barbados. An international athlete, or Olympic athlete, or international cricketer, by a certain age, must know their body mass index, their nutritional requirements in order to compete in the sport. They must know how fast to run, how high to jump at certain levels. They know certain things. They know what to do, how to treat their body. They know how many hours they need to train, muscle memory. They know how to avoid injury. Too many of our athletes and our sportsmen and women don't know this from the early ages that their other competitors know. When to take timeouts based on your records, your injury profile. I mean, if you were to ask any cricket coach in Barbados how many left-arm spinners or fast bowlers there are in the system, you should be able to pull up on any device and say, we know X of being injured, these are the trajectory, the injuries, and the recovery periods. So in order for that level of professionalism that you see other countries come to international competitions with, we need to upskill. So we don't have a high-performance center in any sports. We don't have high-quality gyms for our athletes, that when they go to these competitions in the Olympic villages, they see these, we have a long way to go. We have done a lot at the preliminary level, but in order to penetrate and to maintain that quality and standard of representation and to maintain your competitiveness, we need to now start at a lower level. We need a specialist school for sports at the primary and secondary levels, because you're not going to get that essentially through the system that we have. So we need to fast track these athletes. In other countries, they take them away from their schools and communities, and they only go back home to their parents on weekends, on selected weekends, once or twice a month. But they're in active training from ages as early as 9 and 10. Do you see that, Minister, as a way in which we can go to supercharge the Barbados athletic and sports drive to create that world-class athlete in the future?
I fully embrace every single thing that you're saying. Look, I mentioned earlier that technology is one of the ways that we're going to improve our performances as far as our athletes are concerned. And you touched on something that I want to expand as well when you talk about the officials. Oftentimes we look at sports and we see only the athletes involved, but then there's a place for us to have officials that are world-class officials. When you look at a sport like basketball in the NBA, you have 3 individuals on a court on a night running up and down, blowing a whistle, and they're making $500,000 a year for just blowing a whistle and managing a game. So we need to have our officials straddle not only the local scene, but the region and international as well. But back to what you're saying in terms of the High Performance Center, we have had a sit down with Dr. Allen from the university in relation to how best we can look to see, and we need to revisit the discussions, how best we can look now to have that High Performance Center put in place to do exactly what you're saying as far as developing our athletes. If you look at international competition, you see long jumpers, high jumpers, and as soon as they complete the event, they walk to the side and their coach is able to show them real time on a tablet or something what it is they're doing, what they need to correct almost immediately. And we need to reach that stage. The fact that this thing is costly mean that, again, private sector need to be involved with government in order to build out facilities that will benefit our youngsters. And again, it is unfortunate that private sector don't see the need to be involved in developing our athletes who, at the end of the day, is going to bring that level of pride to country. And I dare say that if you look at our national athletes, the ones who are working in private sector, I don't believe you can walk into a single facility owned by these people and see a picture of our national athletes hang in the place. So, we need to pivot away from the old mindset that sports is just something that is done for recreational purposes, and to invest a little more. I would have mentioned not only here, but before that, government over the last financial year and now would have spent close to $50 million in terms of developing our infrastructure. Something that for the last maybe 50, 60 years was totally unheard of. The fact that government is now doing what we're doing, I think is a clear indication that there's a need now for the private sector on this island to match government in terms of building out the infrastructure, and in this case, the high performance center that you're talking about, that will then help our athletes to hit podium time after time as they compete on the world stage.
Thank you, Minister, for that commitment. And I know you and I are ad idem on this, and I hope that we can, in the future, really build out these facilities so that we can get our athletes and sportsmen and women to the next stage. Mr. Chairman, I yield back my time to you.
Thank you, Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I beg to move that you do now report progress to His Honour the Speaker and beg leave to sit again.
The question is that I do now report progress to His Honour the Speaker and beg for leave to sit again. All honourable members in favor, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Chairman has reported progress and requests leave to sit again. Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House until 10 minutes to 5.
The question is that this Honourable Chairman be suspended until 10 minutes to 5. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it. This Honourable Chairman stands suspended until 10 minutes to 5. The sitting is resumed. We return to our Standing Finance Committee and the Appropriation Bill 2026.
This Honorable House is now in Standing Finance Committee. Honorable Member for Christchurch West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Minister, I want to congratulate you on how far we've come on the National Stadium. I would remember it's been a long road to get to where we are. I see that they've reported significant progress. I remember the days from the implementation agreement through the design, through initial environmental evaluation, and all the whole processes of design. Can you update us, or more importantly, the country, as to where we are now on the stadium in terms of timelines, and when do you anticipate we would have the National Stadium available for use by the athletes of Barbados?
Thank you for that question, Honourable Member. I received a report in December last year indicating that the China State construction, that they were well ahead of the schedule. I plan to visit next week to see what further progress was made in relation to the National Stadium. But I believe in today's paper there's a shot of the work at the National Stadium, and the article would have indicated that they're making steady progress as it relates to that. The proposed completion date for the National Stadium is still 2028, but from all indications, I believe that we are ahead of schedule. I will ask Mr. Rowe to give you some additional information as it relates to the build-out of our National Stadium.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you for the question, Minister. With respect to the National Stadium, they are moving swiftly ahead. As Minister indicated, they're ahead of schedule. As a matter of fact, based on what we've been advised, the concrete superstructure for the grandstand, they are at 21% completion. The structural works, overall structural works, they are at 6%. And the overall National Stadium, they are at 17%. All right, as Minister indicated, they're ahead of schedule. And on the current trajectory, they're expected to complete phase one in time for use for us to be able to bid for the 2028 Carifta Games. Thank you. Yeah. No, just to repeat, based on the current trajectory, it's anticipated that we would be able to bid for the 2028 Carifta Games. Thank you.
So, Minister, I note that Mr. Rowe talked about phase one. So I'm more interested now on where you are with phase two. You would be aware, and I would be aware, that we were looking at, in order to do the second side as a mirror for the first side, and possibly the redirection of the road as well. So where are we in terms of design for phase two of the National Stadium?
You're absolutely correct, Honourable Member, that we have to now look at phase two. A major part of that process is the realignment of that road on, I believe it's the northern side. And we have looked at starting the process. I will speak to Mr. Rowe to get an update as to where we're at. in relation to having the road redesigned, because obviously, in order to mirror the phase one, we have to step back and utilize the existing road. I believe it is the Codrington Road.
With respect to that, as we speak, there is some discussion with the People's Republic of China as it pertains to undertaking phase two. Phase two, as Minister mentioned, would have, well, it includes the realignment of Codrington Road, the construction of a second stand on the eastern side that mirrors the one on the western side, but even more importantly, a warm-up track over on the site of the lumber company, which is a prerequisite for the stadium receiving its accreditation, even to use phase one. Because if you don't have a warm-up track, then the international body will not accredit the stadium for use at that level. So the discussions are ongoing with the People's Republic of China to determine whether or not we can have them continue the project into phase two. Thank you.
And my final question is in keeping with that area in the surrounding of the National Stadium. Concomitant with that is the improvements at the former netball stadium. And I see that you've made significant progress there as well. However, can you update us on where you are, when that will be completed and available for use, and what sports, apart from netball, will be going into that facility next door?
Yes, Honourable Member, you're absolutely correct. The netball stadium, as we know it, is moving at a pace. We had some initial difficulties with the footing. That particular situation was rectified, and we're now moving full steam ahead. During that period when we were working to have the problem with the footing rectified, we were doing some internal work because we felt there was a need to change out some of the tiles and different areas at the location. But, sorry, Mr. Matthias would be better able to address your question in relation to how far along we are and possible completion dates. Mr. Matthias?
Good afternoon again. We recently, just last week, finished putting on the roof with the side cladding. We have the plumbers, the electricians, the floor specialists, all working together to get, to aim for our end of April, that we can have the association's access. We might still be doing some minor works around there, but we have fully refurbished all of the rooms inside, electricals, plumbing, upgraded them, given a fresh coat of paint. And once we have finished putting down the floor itself, then we will move into giving the actual outside of the building a facelift as well. Painting and any decals or logos that need to go on based on what recommendations are given. But we're looking for end of April, early May start for actual sports. Sports going on in there will not only be netball, as you said, it will be basketball and volleyball as well. And we are really looking forward. I know the associations are definitely looking forward to getting access to there as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matthias and Minister. The only thing, this is not a question, but more a comment before I yield back. But I note that you've put down a really high-tech glass floor in the gymnasium. But if you're putting down such a high-tech glass floor in the gymnasium, why you're not putting down the same floor at this location as well? Just a comment and something to look for in the future. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Your concern is duly noted, sir.
Thank you. Honourable Member. Honourable Member for St. Peter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Two short comments and then a pretty simple question. One relates to something that I shared. I want to share it publicly, one because I shared it privately with the Minister. Minister, I spoke to you about something that you have as one of your strategic goals, which is sports as a viable career option. And one of the things that my ministry has gotten involved in recent times is work with the International Labour Organization with respect to occupational safety and health in sports. And I'd like to encourage the ministry to work with us in terms of taking advantage of the information and the expertise that is available, so that as a ministry responsible for sports, you're in a position to help to mold the athletes who you want to take sports as a career option. I know that we did reach out. I'm not aware that we got a response, but I know it's a new area, and so that's why I'm saying it in the presence of all of your officers who are here today. I also want to say that the matter of community, I know a number of colleagues said this before, the matter of lights. Just to add my voice to the call for prioritizing lights, because it goes beyond sports, even at amateur level or professional level. But this is now really societal development and cohesion, keeping our young people out of trouble. So that while you're not ministry responsible for youth, I think we have to take that responsibility because you're responsible for many of these sports grounds. The question I have relates to the Community Independence Secretariat. It is an area that you know, PS knows, the coordinator knows, director knows, that I love. I always like everything. One of the challenges, and Mr. Chair, you may not want to hear me ask this question, but I'm going to ask it nonetheless. Very often, those of us who come second often keep wondering about the judging criteria. Now, I know that those who are intimately involved, and I see the Honourable Member for St. Andrew also shaking his head. Every now and then he comes up in there, every now and then. But while those who are intimately involved may be aware, I get the impression that the crowd of supporters are not aware. And every year, St. Andrew and St. Peter and St. James quarreling. Mr. Chair, no, you don't really bother with us quarreling because you are normally celebrating.
I know the criteria. Go ahead. I know the criteria.
I know you know the criteria. My question is, can that criteria be shared more publicly? Because I believe that often the quite friendly disagreements that we have between, particularly us in the northern parishes, could be assuaged, could be tempered down if more people knew how the judging worked. And I'm just asking if we could, for the sake of the same cohesion that I spoke about earlier, so that we don't become bad neighbors or dislike St. Lucie, if there's any thought of sharing that, and I know it will have to be shared repeatedly because the next year, everybody's going to forget. Can it be shared so that we, the general we, know how the judging goes? I'm not asking this, Mr. Chair, so that we can take anything from you, but I just want the cohesion. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I realize that you went to St. Peter and St. Andrew and not St. John, but that's okay. It is all good. In relation to your comments, yes, we are putting a major priority on lights, like I said, on all of the pastures where we can, because like you mentioned, it is something now that is going beyond sports. So we will look to see how best we can roll out lights at every single location. What you're asking for, I would have had the discussions at my meeting with the head of the Secretariat, because I too believe there's a need to be able to share the points throughout the competition so that different parishes are aware where they're at leading up to the finals and what they need to do in order to maybe leapfrog somebody that is ahead of them. But I will allow Ms. Paris to broaden the conversation in terms of what you would have asked.
Our Jessica Paris, Coordinator, Community Independence Celebration Secretariat. First, I have to take this opportunity to applaud the Team St. Lucie for the work that they continuously do each year. And it's not only Team St. Lucie.
You don't necessarily have. You don't necessarily
but
have.
I'm going. But I'm going to go.
Honourable
But
members,
what we're
I
trying
am
to say
still
is
the
not
chair.
only Team St. Lucie. The other parishes, the other 10 parishes, they work extremely hard also. And I understand your question about the sharing of the criteria to the general public. The minister aptly just said that we were discussions, and he has mandated that we share not only the criteria, but the points going forward with the participants as well, and leading into the actual Spirit of the Nation show, which is a culmination of a year's work to the public as well going into the competition. Now, the parish ambassadors, we are judged the most outstanding parish ambassadors, the attendant of the year, the committee member of the year, and the committee of the year. So, as you rightly said, and I think this is one of the concerns raised by the public that they do not know, they think that when they come to the Spirit of the Nation show, what you see at the Spirit of the Nation show is the only points being garnered throughout the entire program. So, our marketing program, especially going into this year, we have decided that we must let the public know exactly what they're doing throughout the entire year. Because as I said before, the Spirit Nation show is just a culmination. It's a lot of work that's done by all the teams throughout the entire year with their training, for example, their parish projects, their community service, parish month activities. They do a lot of work within the community. So the public needs to be made aware of all those aspects of the program, and not just the Spirit of the Nation show. So we'll be sharing the criteria with the public and all of our social media pages, all the media outlets, everything that we possibly can do. We will share that information with the general public. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just would congratulate you, particularly on that program, Minister and PSN Coordinator. I've seen a lot of young people grow in that program. And it is something that we need to continue to support. You know, at one point, there was a fear, well, not within the last 7 years, but there was a point in time when there was a fear that it may disappear. But I just want to say publicly that my parish likes the program, and we see it as very much developmental, and we urge Coordinator PS Minister to continue to help it to grow and develop. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Five consecutive times is just, you're a bit too late. Honourable Member for St. George.
Thank you, and just as an aside, Chair, 5 consecutive times, but we were just discussing how many times you were engaged in match fixing.
Honourable Member, you need to withdraw those comments from the House.
Withdrawn, sir. Struck from the record. My question relates to sporting facilities and community centers. I know, through you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Minister, you started, well, you've carried on the whole project of installing cameras across community centers and sporting facilities. I'm not sure about the sporting facilities, but for sure I know community centers, we had cameras. And why I'm going there, because there are many young boys and girls, some parents, who in certain areas would not allow their children to venture to some facilities because of fear, the element of fear, and I will leave it there. But in my community, speaking to parents, they've asked if we can install more cameras across the facilities, they'll feel a lot safer. And I know, and I can only speak for my area, but I know in other areas, parents would want a safe environment for their children to engage in sporting activities and indeed in training facilities. And I can tell you that the cameras at Ellerton, they're working. And I would love to see the other side of Ellerton, of Draxall and Greens. And I know many others in St. George North. I'm not sure if your Glebe has cameras as yet, but, and across Barbados, I'm not sure if you have funds in the estimates to make these facilities more safer than they are currently. I just leave the question open-ended there, but you know where I'm going, and I will pause there. That's my last question, and I engage you to bring some clarity to, not only to this chamber, but to those who are listening, because it is a real issue in the country. But I will have to thank myself for the cameras at Ellerton, but I also thank you for the other cameras that you have installed across the facilities in this country, you and your team.
Yeah, I thank you for your comments and the question, Honourable Member. And I know exactly what you mean, and we have started the process, as you would have mentioned, to put cameras on our community centers, but I would allow the chief to expand in relation to the security measures that are being put in place via the cameras.
Thank you, Minister. I just want to confirm what you would have shared just now, in that the installation of security cameras at the community centers is a work in progress. You would appreciate that this is a project where all can't be done at the same time, and therefore we have started, as you would have correctly said, there's some already at Greens, there's some at some of the other community centers as well. In terms of improving security, apart from the installation of cameras, we also want to ensure that the centers are fully functional under all circumstances. So we also moving to install standby generators in the event of a power loss, so that persons can be able to still utilize the centers in the event of a major power loss. We seek to make them as comfortable as possible too, by installing AC units too. So at the end of the day, the centers will become very resilient facilities within all communities in Barbados. But this is a process that we are undertaking, that throughout the course of the coming financial year, we will seek to expand those initiatives.
Just to add to it, I saw the minister defer to the chief of community development, but I also want sporting facilities also to have cameras situated at those facilities. And I am very active in my community across the various sporting communities, Greens, Draxall, and Ellerton. Being the president of Ellerton, I see a need. The community center has, but I see a need for the sporting facilities to have, because there are certain blind spots. And of course, if you have an adjoining sporting facility like what we have at Greens and what we have at Ellerton and what we have at Draxall, we are privileged to have both next to each other. And there are some blind spots whereby the community center, you can't see certain aspects of the facility from the community center. But if you engage the sporting facility, then you'll be able to get a wider view of activities. And I know where I'm going, sir. I know you know where I'm going, and I see the PS as well. So the sporting facilities must get on board as well.
I thank you for that. I'm very, very aware of where you're going, and I support every single thing that you're saying. I'm acutely aware of the need to include our pavilions in the same process, and it will be done, because I'm fully aware of where you're going and why we need to have the security cameras at these locations.
Thank you, Honourable Member for Christchurch West Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And keeping with the cohesive theme of the Member of Parliament for St. Peter, although albeit that in the north, we have cohesion in the south as well. And this question I'm about to ask could be easily and equally asked by the Member of Parliament for Christchurch East Central, Christchurch West, and myself, because the constituencies are conjoined not only physically, but they are conjoined because of one institution. I will call it the St. Dosa Institution of Sports, the Sargents Village Community Center. And it straddles generations, old and young. It has been an active part of our community. And I know you would have mentioned earlier about the empowerment program for landscapers, how we utilize persons within the community, giving them the tools and the wherewithal to be able to take care of their own communities, not only because it's the best thing to do, but it is a part of our mantra as a government. It's part of our manifesto. It has been imbued in our covenant of hope as it relates to how we will ensure that entrepreneurs are created within community spaces and with a sense of Bayesian altruism can look after these spaces, whether it be community centers, sports facilities, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the St. Dosa, or the Sargents Village playing field, has been in a dilapidated state for many years. We have been here, the Member of Parliament for Christchurch West, he asked about it last year in the well. I have been agitating to get it rehabilitated. We have active sports there, cricket and football, and it is a community event, and it's one that the likes of Zarts and Van Lee, and you can call the names Dave, all the guys look forward to cricket in the center of Christchurch South. I want to know, because the last time we spoke, I know there was a movement. We had coalesced a group of youngsters. They went ahead as far as getting the architects. They put together and registered a contracting business with masons and carpenters and laborers, and they were ready. They have the plans and everything to execute this project in partnership with your ministry. I want to know what's happening with the project and if it is a part of the $2.something million in capital works that you have in the estimates. Thanks.
Sorry, Honourable Member, this is a pavilion or community center?
Well, it
Is
a community center. It falls on the community department, but persons play sports, and you know that there is a marriage between your community centers and your sporting facilities. So I think it's community center.
All right, I will allow the chief to handle that question.
Sorry. Thank you, Minister. As you correctly said, member of St. Christchurch, West Central, the Sargents Village Community Center has been condemned for several years. And I am not going to sit here and to pacify anything. I am not aware, or I was not aware, that the members of the particular community had gone as far as to have architectural plans in place, had artisans in place, had all of the preparatory work completed before. My knowledge stops at the fact that the Ministry of Public Works condemned the building and it was earmarked for demolition. As it stands, we do recognize that there's a need for a community center in that particular area because, again, like in Christchurch South, there's many facilities in that particular area. And therefore, it's one of the places, it's one of the centers that we have earmarked for attention in the next financial year. I would have to review the plans, given the information that you would have just shared with us, and see how feasible that they can be adopted into our long-term plans or medium-term plans as they relate to that particular facility.
Just to be clear, you're saying that it is already budgeted for in the estimates?
Yes, that has been identified as one of the centers that we plan to pay attention to this financial year. Yeah. But we haven't budgeted, to say a budget to put a sum towards it, we haven't gone that far.
But just to give you the reassurance that the plans were done by an architect, the engineering know was on board, and there is a group of young men who have, as I said, and I will repeat, has formed a company, and they are ready, willing to go as part of building out their own community. We look forward, the three ministers, a member of parliament of the area, look forward to that cohesion.
Yes.
And a partnership with your ministry, your department.
Yes, of course. Once the information gets to my desk, then we would seek to advance the process.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
May not agree with me.
Honourable Leader, bring the business.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know it is late in the afternoon. I have no intention of detaining this house too much longer. But given that today is my birthday, I feel that I should have the right to place on record for the benefit of this house just a few questions in relation to this particular head. I have had a relatively decent relationship with this particular ministry and certainly this minister, as well as predecessor ministers, in relation to the development of the sporting facilities in St. Michael's Southeast. I don't want that, as I come to the end, that I become too parochial, but it seems from these estimates, particularly in the summary of the items that are and the objectives for this financial year, that there is mention, for instance, of only one facility for expenditure. Now, I know that I'm sure you have several other community centers being built out. They're not in the summary attached to this particular financial statements for this year. And I am just curious, for instance, I know during the campaign recently, we spoke about a number of facilities that would be built out. One of those being the Meadow Road facility, of which I know members are very familiar. We've had a number of challenges there in terms of being able to address the issues of particularly our young people. We had situations where young people were actually murdered in that particular area. And we've fought for some time to be able to get the designs completed, to be able to build out a community center in what is considered another very dense part of the Pineland and Wildy area. So I'm just curious, while I see for the London Bourne facility, which is in construction, and perhaps this financial year will come to a close, I am not seeing, unless you can guide me there, Minister, where the expenditure is located for this particular facility at Meadow Road. And perhaps I think all of us would benefit from a realistic expectation as to what are those facilities in this financial year in terms of community centers that will actually be built out. Because I think it's clear that we would all like you to spend $56 million on all the things that we need across 30 constituencies. But there are capacity constraints, and there are obviously human resource constraints that you, like all the rest of us, are faced with. So I would prefer a more realistic discussion as you close as to what we can expect from across the constituencies in relation to these types of facilities in this financial year.
Thank you, DPM. I will allow the Director of the National Sports Council to speak to you as it relates to the Meadow Road project.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Member of Parliament. The area. We had met over the last 2 years or so extensively with the Member of Parliament for the area in relation to the upgrades of a number of facilities across her constituency. Indeed, we completed, or when I say we, the ministry, mainly the Community Development Division, would have completed the upgrade at Princess Royal, and we want to thank them for them. They just finished that, I believe, in January. We have also working with the NGO to do some work at Parkinson A field, and the big project at Meadow Road, Community Center / Pavilion, which we will straddle 2 financial years. We have that included in our estimates of expenditure for the year 2026, 2027, 2028. So that is very much included, and that will straddle 2 financial years. So we will start it a little later on in the year so that it will then continue on into the next financial year. Thank you.
Can you say at this stage what is the projected cost and the expected timelines on the project? I know you're saying 2 financial years, but what is the exact timeline?
Sorry. We have included $1.5 million overall, 750, I believe, for 2 financial years.
All right, thank you, Minister and team. Chair, I think that brings us to the end of today, so back to you.
Sorry, just before you go back, Chair, I'll allow the Chief to share some information about those community centers that you asked about.
Thank you again. Thank you again, Minister. We have 13 centers earmarked for significant work in the next financial year. They include Andrew Allen, Baywoods. Would you like to hear the sums as well?
Yeah, I think it would be useful for members and the public to fully understand what is planned, because we spend so much time highlighting the things that still need to be done. But I think the country would benefit from hearing what you are in fact doing and what is planned for this financial year.
Okay. From the top again, it would be Andrew Allen, $150,000. Baywoods, $100,000. Baywoods is Orange Hill. Branchbury, this will be refurbishment of the interior and exterior and install AC at $175,000. Bush Hall, refurbish the mill wall, $150,000. Clapham for expansion at $175,000. District D, Rock Hall in St. Thomas, that would be $300,000. Eden Lodge, $300,000. Highgate Hall, painting and light maintenance, $75,000. Kendall for an expansion, $250,000. Sergeant's Village reconstruction, $300,000. Sion Hill refurbished downstairs, $125,000. St. Christopher refurbishment, $200,000. And St. Mark's, primarily plumbing overhaul, $75,000. That's a total of $2.375 million.
Thank you for that, and I'm sure that honorable members, had we had that at the beginning, it would have been able to maybe reduce the number of questions asked in terms of what expectations there are for this financial year. Perhaps I would just suggest that maybe communication should go to the respective MPs and perhaps a greater PR so that people actually know what is really happening within the respective communities going forward, so that we can minimize the amount of questions that we actually raise here as members of parliament on the floor of the House. All right. Thank you. Chair, back to you.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. John, Minister. I now invite you to give your summary, next 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I want to first extend gratitude to all of my colleagues who participated in the process here today. It provided my team and I with an opportunity to share some of the work that is happening at the Ministry of Sports and Community Empowerment. You would have heard from the Community Independent Secretariat the work that is happening, and I want to echo the sentiments of my colleague from St. Peter in relation to the growth of the young people who are involved in that particular program. Maybe we need to do coordinate some kind of database to show where they are now in terms of the ambassadors who pass through that program. But it is one that is continuing to take shape, and excuse me, we will do what is necessary to make it relevant every single year. From community development, you would have heard from the chief and the deputy chief about the number of programs that we are doing at community development. The latest one that is fairly ambitious is to outfit all of our community centers with generators because of the hurricanes that are coming across the Atlantic. And we figured that it must be a case where in order to help communities that we should outfit our community centers with the generators and water tanks. As far as the sports project is concerned on island, I don't think there's anyone on island now that can say that government is making sport at sports, because for the last couple of years, we would have done a whole set of things in relation to man development, being gender neutral, and the infrastructural development. We have seen a number of projects coming on stream, and they were mentioned before: the National Stadium, the Netball Stadium, the 400 track at Wilde, the additional 2 400 tracks, one in the north and one in the east. And these 400 tracks will be accompanied by the Olympic-sized swimming pool. We would have seen the restart of beach football, and I'm hoping that from that particular competition, and I need a report to find out, because part of the process was to do what I would have asked for in terms of talent identification to form the nucleus of a national beach football team. The beach volleyball court was open at the Wilde Gymnasium. We have seen the start of the badminton and squash facility also at the Wilde Gymnasium. It is not well known, but we have 6 cameras at the National Sports Council that will provide an opportunity for coaches who are overseas to be able to view players here on island that cannot reach them, who may be interested in looking for scholarships. And in addition to that, we have a SAT program at the ministry that provides an opportunity for those student athletes who are looking to transfer to the US. It is a program which is a scholarship program, so to speak, that provides an opportunity for those parents who can't afford to pay to be able to source that particular training for the student athletes. I took a paper to cabinet that was approved where in the near future we will be signing a MOU with Ghana to partner and to see how best that we can develop sports, and the opportunity for us, Ghana and Barbados, to do exchanges in terms of our young athletes. You would have heard today from Mr. Clark in relation to what is coming down the chute as far as road tennis is concerned. And we are quite excited about where we can take road tennis. One of the members indicated that it is time that we put some serious attention into road tennis, and that is being done. So, Chair, I am pleased about what my team and I are doing at the Ministry of Sports and Community Empowerment to move the needle forward. We are definitely in the race in terms of developing our young people, and we will continue to be proactive because government is seeing the need for sports to be at a level now where everybody is satisfied that Barbados is, or we can be one of the major players. One of or two of the key areas that we are currently looking at: one, to look at sports tourism in a more serious way, because we believe that we can have a number of teams and tournaments here during the down period, which should be April to October, and plans are in train to make sure that we can do that. You would have heard the mention of the new glass floor at the Wilde Gymnasium facility that we are expecting over a period of time to be able to have a cost recovery where teams are coming from North America and other areas to train and to practice at that particular location. The other thing that is occupying the Ministry of Sports this financial year is how do we now monetize sports on island. The fact that cricket is something that we have been successful in more than probably any other country in the Caribbean. We now need to see how best that we can use cricket to monetize that on the behalf of not only those who are involved in the process, but government as a whole. So I am satisfied that we are doing what we're supposed to do as a government in relation to sports, in relation to our target population, who are the athletes that are participating. And we will continue at the ministry to do what we think is necessary to make Barbados world-class as far as sports is concerned. With those few words, Chair, I beg that Head 51 stand par.
The question is that Head 51 stand par. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. I think the ayes have it. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I beg to move that you do now report progress to His Honor the Speaker and beg leave to sit again.
The question is that I do not report progress to His Honor the Speaker and beg for leave to sit again. All honorable members in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Honorable members against, say no. I think the ayes have it.
Has reported progress and request leave to sit again. Honourable Leader, Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, recommittal papers.
Honourable Leader, Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am commanded to lay the consolidated financial statements for the Board Court, Inc. for the year ended March 31st, 2025.
Recommittal government notices.
Honourable Leader, Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice of a resolution that the fiscal framework 2026-2027 to 2028-2029 be debated in Parliament, and that any recommendations made in respect of the fiscal framework 2026-2027 to 2028-2029 be considered by Cabinet.
Recommittal private members' notices. Private members' notices.
Honourable Member St. George North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm honored to have the opportunity to table a resolution which relates to portable social security benefits, a resolution which I hope would be used to inform the modernization of the Barbados National Insurance Security Act, which was introduced almost 60 years ago. It reads as follows. Whereas the world of work has undergone significant transformation, with increasing numbers of Barbadians earning their livelihood through short-term contracts, subcontracting arrangements, platform work, freelance engagement, digital work, and other non-standard forms of employment. And whereas these workers contribute labor, value, and productivity to the development of Barbados, yet remain exposed to insecurity because social protection is too often treated as attaching to a job title or contractual label rather than to the worker as a person. And whereas the principle that Social Security must follow the worker and not the job is essential to ensuring fairness, resilience, and national social stability. And whereas a portable benefits framework anchored in the National Insurance Social Security Service would require every employer, contractor, platform, agency, engager, or other beneficiary of labor to make contributions on behalf of every worker for the duration of that engagement to ensure continuity of protection regardless of the form or length of work. And whereas such a reform must be national in reach and must therefore extend to all workers, including gig workers, construction workers, retail workers, transport workers, tourism workers, care workers, domestic workers, agricultural workers, creative workers, and participants in the wider digital economy. And whereas this reform will prove vital in protecting young workers building a future, parents who survive by piecing together multiple incomes, and older workers who should not reach pensionable age only to discover that years of labor did not translate into the contributions required for dignity in retirement. And whereas, recognizing that widening participation in the National Insurance Social Security Service will strengthen the system, deepen compliance, and close long-standing loopholes that have nurtured lack of accountability and responsibility. And whereas, accepting that the effective implementation of portable Social Security benefits would require supporting measures, including clear remittance rules, practical digital systems for payment, tracking and reconciliation, stronger inspection, monitoring and enforcement, proportionate penalties for non-compliance, and a sustained program of public education and sensitization to ensure that workers and engagers alike understand their rights, duties, and responsibilities. Be it resolved that this Honourable House, A, supports the establishment of a national portable benefits framework through the National Insurance Social Security Service that ensures that Social Security follows the worker and not the job. B, calls for the development and implementation of the supporting administrative, technological, and enforcement measures necessary to ensure that the framework is effective, equitable, and accessible. And C, commits Barbados in its 5th year as a republic to affirming that portable benefits constitute an act of nation building and a people-centered investment in fairness, resilience, and social stability, so that no worker is rendered invisible and no worker is left behind. Mr. Speaker, I'm obliged.
Right to government business.
Honourable Leader, government business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With that, we have come to the end of today's sitting, and we've therefore concluded the estimates of revenue and expenditure. We will move the heads on Monday the 16th at 3:30 p.m., followed by the budget statement from the Honourable Minister of Finance. And with that, I therefore beg to move the suspension of the House until March 16th at 3:30 p.m.
The question is that this Honourable Chamber be suspended until Monday, March 16th at 3:30 p.m. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting, yes, this Honourable Chamber stands suspended until Monday, 16th of March, 2026 at 3:30 p.m.